going over unemployment and inflation. But before we go over that, we need to understand the three main economic goals of any single nation or society. First, they want to promote economic growth. They want a growing economy that can produce more and more and that people can be supported. Second, they want to limit unemployment. Not necessarily 0% unemployment, but they want a low unemployment rate. And then they want to limit inflation. Again, not a 0% inflation, but a low rate of inflation. Today we're going to be going over 2 and 3, unemployment and inflation. First, let's go over unemployment. Unemployment is simply the amount of workers looking for a job but aren't working. Then the unemployment rate, what we see all the time, isn't actually just the percent of people that don't have a job. If that was the case, then the unemployment rate would be like 30% because there's millions of people out there that don't have a job. The unemployment rate is a really specific metric. The unemployment rate is the percent of people in labor force who want a job but aren't working. So, to be counted on unemployment rate, you must be 16 years or older, able and willing to work, not institutionalized, so you're not in jail or you're not in a hospital, and you're not in the school or military or any type of education. So there are strict requirements for the unemployment rate. If it was just who's unemployed, who's not unemployed, then the real unemployment rate in most countries would be like 30-40%. But because we have those strict standards, most countries have an unemployment rate of 3-4%. So there's 3 types of unemployment that we need to know: frictional, structural, and cyclical. Frictional unemployment is when you have temporary jobs or you're in between jobs. You just got fired and you're looking for another job. A specific type of frictional unemployment is seasonal unemployment. So you're being employed temporarily for a job, but it's only based on a season or it's only based on a holiday or something like that. For example, a person could be hired as a mall Santa Claus during Christmas, or I forgot the store, Spirit Halloween. Those employees are considered seasonal unemployment because they're only working for a time. They're not fully employed, if that makes sense. Second is structural unemployment. You don't have the necessary skills, education, or basically the requirements or prerequisites for a job. This is why education is so important, because education and capital skills allows you to be more qualified for higher level jobs. Things like doctors, engineers, lawyers, they require extensive education and capital knowledge. That's the problem though. A lot of people don't have the necessary skills, and that causes structural unemployment. Specifically, we have technological unemployment, a really niche type of unemployment here, where you're losing your job because of advances to technology. So AI, automation, any type of technology. For instance, I believe 100 to 150 years ago, when tractors came into agriculture, thousands of people lost their jobs because they didn't have necessary skills in the workforce, and the tractors could do their job way easier. So that's an idea of structural unemployment. You just don't have the necessary skills to do your job anymore. And then third, we have cyclical unemployment. This is unemployment caused by recession, or we have bad economic times where companies are making less profit and then they have to lay off employees. Now you have to understand the natural rate of unemployment. Natural rate of unemployment is simply structural plus frictional unemployment. Why is there no cyclical unemployment? Because the idea of the natural rate of unemployment is that it's the rate of unemployment when the economy is doing great, when the economy is peaking, when there's no bad economic times, when the economy is doing great. So that's the idea of the natural rate of unemployment. So let's go through these 2 different questions. Pause the video, try to solve these. Okay, let's go through them. Number 3, the official unemployment rate understates the real unemployment rate because the official unemployment rate ignores the duration of unemployment. No. Ignores underemployment and discouraged workers. Kinda, but not really. Includes jobs created by the underground economy. Let's read this question specifically. The official unemployment rate understates the real. If it understates, then that can't be it. D, excludes all unemployed teenagers. That might be it. E excludes frictionally unemployed workers. That's definitely it, because it does exclude those that are in between jobs, or it does exclude people that are in between jobs. Then number 8, which of the following individuals is considered unemployed? Chris, who has not worked for more than 3 years and has given up looking for work. That can't be it, because if he's given up looking for work, he can't be counted on unemployment rate. Kim, who is going to school full time, that can't be it. If you're in school, you can't be unemployed. Pat, who recently left a job to look for a different job in another town, that's definitely right. Because if you're looking for a job but you don't have a job, then you are considered unemployed. Now let's go through inflation. Inflation is the general increase in the cost of goods. It's simply how much and the change in prices of goods. The inflation rate is the percent change in price from year to year. So if a carton of milk is $1 last year and this year it's $1.08, that means the inflation rate is 8%. Price indices are specific numbers, index numbers assigned to each year that show how prices have changed. So for instance, if that milk is $1 last year and now it's $1.08, then the price index is 108 because it shows that it grew by 8%. So 108 would stand for 8% growth. The CPI, or the Consumer Price Index, tries to measure the change in cost of products that are normally bought by citizens. So think milk, eggs, bread, products that we would normally buy. When we're calculating the inflation, or when companies or governments calculate the inflation rate, they're calculating it for all goods, which isn't always accurate for citizens because they're including tanks, they're including helicopters, they're including private yachts. But for regular people, they're not buying those types of products. So the CPI tries to measure it for citizens. The way they calculate it is the price in the market basket divided by the price of base year. So basically the current year divided by the base year, so last year or 10 years ago or whatever, times 100. That's equal to the CPI. Now people have this idea that inflation is always bad, that inflation hurts everyone, but that's not necessarily true. For example, it helps borrowers since, let's say you're borrowing $1,000. Well, it's a lot easier to pay off the $1,000 if there's a high rate of inflation, and then you earn more money, and then you pay off the $1,000. But it hurts people that are lending the money since their income is fixed based on the interest rate. So if I lend $1,000 to Mike, and there's a really high rate of inflation, well, I'm losing a lot of money because I'm not making the profit back even through an interest rate. Then there's 2 different types of inflation you need to know. Cost push, which is when the cost of raw resources increases, that causes inflation to occur because if the cost of resources increases, then the price of all goods needs to rise. Then the demand pull inflation, which is when demand of a product increases dramatically, so this can lead to inflation. Most of the time we see cost push, but demand pull can definitely happen. So let's go through these 3 questions. Pause the video, try to solve them. Okay, let's go through to number 2. Hyperinflation is typically caused by? Well, we need to understand what is hyperinflation. Hyperinflation is just simply really, really, really high inflation. So let's go through these. High tax rate discourage work efforts. That's not really dealing with inflation. Continuous expansion of money supply. That definitely seems correct. Remember, inflation is simply how much money is being in the economy. If there's more money in the economy, then the value is less. That causes hyperinflation. So definitely B. Which of the following is most likely to cause cost push inflation? Remember, cost push inflation is when the raw resources and their cost increases. A sudden increase in oil prices? That definitely seems correct. We saw this in 2020 and 2022 with the war in Ukraine. Oil prices skyrocketed because the United States started sanctioning Russia and oil from Ukraine stopped coming in. So that led to an increase in price of all types of goods because we need oil to produce hundreds and thousands of different types of goods. So that caused cost push inflation in 2022. So yeah, A definitely makes sense. Then number 12, an increase in the consumer price index most directly indicates which of the following. A rise in unemployment? Nah. An increase in the real value of money? No, really the opposite. C, economic growth. Maybe generally inflation does align with economic growth, but let's see. A general increase in the price levels, that's definitely correct. Consumer price index is trying to calculate the increase in price, even if it is for not all goods. And a decrease in interest rates doesn't make sense. So now you need to understand the Phillips curve. The Phillips curve is basically showing a relationship between unemployment and inflation. On the x-axis we have unemployment, and on the y-axis we have inflation. So we have a general relationship. This line here is the short run Phillips curve. This is the long run Phillips curve. In the short run, there's an inverse relationship. So you either have high inflation, low unemployment, or low inflation, high unemployment. Take, for example, 2020 in COVID. During COVID, inflation was really, really low, actually. It was around 0% negative at some points, but unemployment was really high. I believe 6-7% in the United States. However, come a year or 2 years from then, eventually the roles kind of shifted. Unemployment was actually kind of low, 3-4%, that's pretty low. But then inflation was really high, 6-7% inflation. So that's kind of the short run Phillips curve. In the short run, there's an inverse relationship. You either have high inflation, low unemployment, or low inflation, high unemployment. But economists argue that in the long run, there is no relationship. So that means you could have low inflation, low unemployment, kind of what we see right now in 2025, or you could have high inflation and high unemployment, which happens all the time. It's called stagflation. So now you understand the basic ideas of unemployment and inflation, why it's so important that we limit and control these through our economy, the different types of unemployment, the different types of inflation, and so much more.